Hey, gang, it's me. I just want to run my mouth a little bit, as usual. Um, I wanted to go back to this. Well, of course, we all know what's going on. Well, some of us know what's going on with this Iran-Israel-U.S. conflict. But the main point I want to make, or the main point of interest to me, are these folks that are talking about regime change in Iran. Okay, so we hear regime change, or folks talking about the mullahs. Okay, most folks don't even know what a mullah is. Okay, if you ask him, I asked a guy at Walmart, I heard him talking about Iran at the checkout, and I asked him, he mentioned the word mullah, and I asked him what a mullah was. He said, "Well, those are the guys that run Iran." I said, "But what is a mullah? What's the title mean?" He didn't have a clue. I didn't say anything. I just said, "Okay." I was just curious. I didn't know what it is either. I just left it alone. Um, mullah is just a religious leader. Okay, it's like the maybe a bishop or a cardinal, I guess. Um, or I guess in Iran's case, maybe the Pope. Um, you've got chief rabbis in various cities and various countries. It's a religious leader. That's all it means. That's all it means. Okay. I was watching on Tucker Carlson the other day. He had Ted Cruz on, and he asked Ted Cruz simple questions. What's the population of Iran? What's the religious makeup? Is it Sunni, Shia, or whatever else? And of course, Ted Cruz didn't know and became belligerent and copped an attitude. And, the average person doesn't know, and I wouldn't expect them to know if they don't really follow this stuff. But if you're a United States Senator and have for years, many years, uh, uh, basically showed an interest or a desire for regime change in Iran, okay? But we have been propagandized so much that we think everything Iran is mean and evil. Well, that's what we do when we want to overthrow a government. We want to conduct a regime change. Gaddafi was this, Assad was this, um, Saddam Hussein is this, and now it's the Iranians. And people aren't bothering us. Look what's going on in Gaza. Hmm? Where's there a regime change needed? If you go by the Lancet, the medical journal in Britain, there are 125,000 dead in Gaza. Okay. Of course, Mr. Trump said he hates seeing the destruction and death in Ukraine. Of course, that's only so they could do the minerals deal. Turns a blind eye to what's going on in Gaza. Okay. Israel launches strikes against Iran based on lies. Tulsi Gabbard, our National Intelligence Director of DNI, Director of National Intelligence, said 3 months ago Iran wasn't making one, had no plans on making a nuclear weapon. But our administration, Trump went what the Israelis said, not what our own intelligence said. And of course, Tulsi has since changed her mind and went to the pro-Iran strike way of thinking. Okay, so she bent over, and she wants to stay in power, so she'll go ahead with it. But we go with an Israeli report, all right, because our own intelligence that you and I spend billions of dollars a year evidently are insufficient. Hmm? They don't know what they're doing. We go with the Israeli. We go with the Israeli narrative. Oh, they're getting ready to make one immediately. Within the next 4 or 5 days, maybe. And then when we get the report on the damage assessment of Trump's strikes, okay, he has a report in his hand that the Israelis said that it was that it was successful. If you if you don't think our government is owned and controlled by that alone, to negate what our own Director of National Intelligence says for a foreign government, a foreign country's narrative of their report. That's more important than ours. That's more reliable and dependable. Okay, these are the same folks that want regime change in Iran. Okay, because of the mullahs. Okay, let me tell you something. I saw the other day on CNN. Well, first of all, they did a poll, all the major mainstream media. did a poll, even CNN, 79% of Americans do not want Iran uh, to possess nuclear weapons. And about the same number is okay with President Trump launching airstrikes to destroy them. Okay? And this whole thing is it's all based on lies. Israel struck another country unprovoked. And you know what they use? Well, because people in Iran chant death to America, death to Iran. You know why people said death to America? That started back after the fall of the Shah. Okay? The Shah had an organization called SAVAK, SAVAK. It was their secret police. They had dungeons. They snatched people off the street. Okay? They were taught all that by CIA. And I said before, the Shah had a CIA shroud around him that protected him. They cleared who could get in touch with him, who could see him, who could speak with him. Okay, he was just owned and controlled. And now they want to put his son back in. But anyway, that's what people were protesting. Okay, when they hit the embassy and found documents, secret documents about our intelligence operations and the Israelis and so on and so forth. Yeah, they didn't like us because a lot of their people had disappeared. They also knew that America was the push behind Iraq attacking Iran, where Iran lost, 1 million people during that, trying to defend their country. So yeah, there was no love for America, no love at all. And then you got these sanctions, unwarranted, they're illegal. Sanctions against Iran, like Trump says, trying to put a stranglehold on them, trying to strangle them. So why would people say anything else but that? Come on, all right. We got people in America talking about regime change in Iran, and Iran's done nothing to them. I was looking at CNN the other day. I don't know if any of y'all know Van Jones from the Obama administration. I think whenever Obama was in office, he was this green energy guy, whatever. But anyway, a lefty. He was on CNN the other day. They were talking about regime change. And this guy is just sickening. This guy sits up there with a straight face. And the first thing he says was, I recently visited the promised land, not the promised land, what do they call it? Anyway, he was in the Middle East. What do they call that? Is it the promised land? But he said he visited the Middle East. Well, it was code for Israel. And the Holy Land. That's it, the Holy Land. That's code for Israel. I just visited the Holy Land. Whoop-de-doo, Van, whoop-de-doo. As soon as you said it, I know some lies were going to come rolling off of your mouth, spewing lies, because you visited the Holy Land. You got your talking points. That's why you're on CNN, so you can spew some of these lies. Where Van Jones said, in Iran, he said Iran's not a regular country, not like a regular country. In Iran, if a woman shows her hair, she's blinded. She's blind. The government will capture her, will snatch her and blind her, end her eyesight for letting her hair show. And the shame about it is, many in America, uneducated, cretins, propagandized, will believe that. Iran, a country of 90 million roughly, and the male-females is about evenly split, very close, 49 to 51, I believe, in favor of males. But anyway, say 50-50. So you mean to tell me there's 45 million Iranian women that are under threat of being blinded by their government for showing their hair? It's insidious. I would ask Mr. Van Jones to get up off his knees and wipe his mouth because he's a cretin. Okay, for someone to come up with something as dastardly as that the government will blind a woman for showing her hair. Well, you know what? There's a lot of visitors, tourists that go to Iran. Not now because there was bombing going on recently, but they do. Over the years, they do. They have visitors from all over the world, And you know what? I'm surprised of the bloggers, American bloggers or British, that go there, that show the people, that show the architecture, show the mosques, show the markets, show the shopping malls. They got shopping malls that'll rival anything in America or anything anywhere in Europe. They got shopping malls that rival almost anything in Beverly Hills, California. Okay, and what are they showing? There are some women that have the cover, and they just show their face and the gown that goes all the way down. Okay, those are religious people. Those women aren't forced. That's their choice of religion. Just like Pentecostals in America, you're not wearing blue jeans and tennis shoes to their church. They'll stop you at the door. Women aren't wearing mini skirts and having their top part all pushing out like they're doing some Baptist churches. You're not doing it. You're going to dress with respect. Okay, for yourself and the men. The men wear suits and ties when they go there. Okay, that's the requirement of that church. Okay, and certain religious edicts come down in Iran. Okay, but all women aren't wearing gowns. All women aren't wearing burqas. Okay, you look at any video. Go to YouTube. I'm on YouTube. You're on YouTube right now, and there are people that because everyone's got a camera. Everyone's got a phone with a camera, but some people go and they want to do a documentary about the people of Iran, the culture, the religion, the absolutely fantastic food, and you see the pictures of the street. And people are just going about their lives, and even some of the women that are wearing scarves, they're wearing them back here. Okay, the hair here, and some of the hair is coming down. They got makeup on. So by Van Jones's narrative, it should be vans rolling all up and down the street, just snatching them off the street so they go be blinded. Okay, but for him to make that statement is insidious. Like I said before, Kim Iverson was talking about, oh, she'd like the Ayatollah to go, because of the way they treat women. 2017, 2019, there were women's marches against Trump, okay, by the thousands in Chicago. Probably 10, 15,000 women showed up, okay? And the only reason why it lost steam is because a couple of the leaders had met with Louis Farrakhan. Here's your freedom and democracy. And so they were vilified. They were pulled over, dragged over the coals. The funding ceased, okay? Because they saw Louis Farrakhan, and they didn't distance themselves because Louis Farrakhan said anti-Semitic remarks. And of course, we know that the Semitics are the Palestinians, the Jews that went there, 95, 98% have no Semitic blood in them. Okay, the Europeans and so on. So anyway, but that's that. There are more, on a percentage, more women at colleges and universities in Iran today than men. The women are treated so unfairly. Engineers, especially the medical field, but engineers, doctors, and teachers are the primary courses of study for them. Not the only courses, but that's it. The literacy rate, what folks can read and write, is about 98% in Iran. What is it in America? 68%, 72%? It's not even close to what it is in Iran. That's how Iran can build those missiles. They got an educated workforce, highly educated workforce. Okay? But anyway, if you look at, let's go to, say, Los Angeles, where they're protesting ICE. But also in Chicago and New York, where they got signs, impeach Trump, put Trump in jail. Well, if you impeach Trump, or you put him in jail for past crimes, what are you asking for? You're calling for regime change. If you want the current president out, you're looking for regime change, okay? When we talk about regime change, because that's what it is, what do? They send in the National Guard and Marines against those people, okay? Now, there were cars being burnt and so on in Los Angeles, but I'm thinking that all started after the Marines and the National Guard showed up, okay? And those are violent protesters, insurrectionists. Some people call them terrorists, okay? And the cars were burned. That's crazy. Burning up people's property. You burn the police cars. That's your tax money. They're gonna replace them. And I don't think if you want to do a peaceful protest, do a protest. But there's always those. There's always a percentage that want to hijack the protest and and commit mayhem and damage. So those people are going to go. I think peaceful protest is fine. If you're doing anything else, they need to lock you up. But I'm also looking at what was it a couple of years ago when they had protests in Iran. Okay, we were told they were peaceful protests, but there were plenty of videos from bystanders, but mostly from bystanders, because again, everybody's got a phone and a camera, where people were burning banks and burning commercial buildings and burning vehicles. But we wanted to call that peaceful protest. Nonsense. Those people were funded by outside. They were instigated by outside, and some people. There are people that want regime change. They want to change their government around. If folks in France, again, I think I said the other day, they had a protest in Britain protesting their government. America, jeepers, creepers, there's protests all over America. So what does that mean? Someone should go in militarily and bomb them, and do a regime change because there's opposition, huh? But that opposition was a couple of years ago. They locked people up. We call it a brutal crackdown on peaceful protests. There was nothing peaceful about that Iranian protest, and not everyone was involved in violence. That's for sure. There are people in all of these protests that believe, they believe for a particular cause, and they protest. And you got that one group. It could be other cases, 2 or 3%, 5% to cause trouble. Go back to Hong Kong. Remember when the opposition leader was videoed meeting with the folks from the U.S. Embassy staff, against his own country. And there are videos of them, just like January 6th, these folks trying to get into the legislative building in Hong Kong, and they were stopped. The video of them throwing a flammable liquid on a man and setting him on fire. There's videos of them stopping, shutting down the airports, shutting down the subways, and all of that. We called them peaceful protests and demanded the Chinese government leave those poor people alone. It was all nonsense. They were funded from the outside. They were pushing against their own government. Okay. Now let's go to this Iran thing. Okay. Trump launched these strikes. He said it was they worked, successful, and you've got people pushing up against him. That deep state pushing out a narrative through the media that the strikes didn't do anything, that they were unsuccessful. But there's Trump in front of the camera. I don't know, was he at NATO meeting when they were asking questions? I forget exactly, but this was a day or two ago with an intelligence report from who? Israel, that stated that it was a success. People in America say it wasn't a success, but you go to Israel and show. Imagine that, President of the United States twice, very recently, using Israeli intelligence documents to conduct either a military strike or any type of political agenda, whatever, using Israeli intel. Okay, these are the same people that Netanyahu for 30 or 40 years been talking about Iran's got a bomb, or they're building one. That within 5 years, and it went down to 6 months and 3 weeks or whatever. Okay, but the folks that are talking about regime change, that this strike from Trump on Iran nuclear facilities was unsuccessful, so they can push Trump to strike some more, okay? Additional strikes, okay? Because they're doing the bidding of Israel. Anyway, when these first Israeli strikes came out, and their videos, everybody says, oh, they're doctored, they're, no, all the people are paid by the government. No, they're not in Iran. They went out in support of their government, men and women. Some of the women with the dealio covering their head and everything, that's fine. Okay, holding up a picture of their leader. Okay, we want to do resort. Mr. Trump says he doesn't, but there's a whole lot of people in the U.S. government that want regime change, and we know Israelis want regime change. I guess some folks want to put the Shah's little boy in to take his daddy's place, but we know what the Shah was: corrupt to the T. Had billion stash. If you remember, during the Carter administration. When that was the news, was that he, to vilify him, to vilify the Shah. He was our guy up to a certain point. And of course, he was talking about how America, that the Jews have oversized influence in American politics. And when what's his name, Wallace? What's his name? What's his name? Dan Wallace. I think that's who was the interview of the Shah. Was that went to ask him some more or to clarify. The Shah said, "That's enough. I'll leave it there." And wasn't too long after he was deposed by America, same people that put him in power. But anyway, to think that their people are ready to overthrow the government of Iran, it's silly. Okay, and again, I'm sure there's opposition. I know there's opposition in Iran to, that want to change. Okay, and they're pro Shah, Pavlov. I think their name Pavlovi, uh, pro Shah regime type people. There were people under the Shah that made a whole lot of money, and there were people under the Shah that made nothing, that were poor. Um, the literacy rate has gone up since he's left. But anyway, regime change is not going to work. And again, the majority of the people, I'm willing to bet 90% support their government. And especially now that the Ayatollah, the mullahs, gave Israel a bloody nose. I know that they're in favor of their government because they gave a response. They didn't whimper. They gave it their all. Okay? Even when airstrikes, when Israel was launching airstrikes against Syria. And I would even say on certain social media platforms, why isn't Assad responding? Why I'm going to go to the UN and whimper? Man, someone's got to bloody the other guy's nose, especially if Iran is sitting there minding their business and was attacked by sneak attack by Israel based on lies, just flat out lies. Okay? And evidently they don't need nuclear weapons, huh? They got a missile force that's handling business. And before I go, I want to mention this ceasefire. I don't know if you all have noticed, now there's much more video trickling out of Israel of the damage that was done. Okay? And also about that hospital strike when they're showing, and this is from Israeli media, folks, where there's intelligence headquarters and another IDF command and control center, all within about a block of that hospital. So they weren't targeting the hospital. Iran was targeting military infrastructure. The hospital was close. And again, you see the windows blown out and some of the siding down inside the hospital. You see ceiling tiles. That wasn't a direct strike. If it was a direct strike, they'd have showed it to you. They didn't show it to you because it doesn't exist. Okay, anyway, getting back to the ceasefire. And many have said, especially in light of these videos coming out, these images coming out, it was Israel that needed a ceasefire. They're the ones that asked Trump to ask for a ceasefire. The Iranians didn't. That was Trump, because Israel's running out of missiles, Iron Dome missiles to fire from their fighter jets. And Iranian missiles were hitting their targets, military bases, military office buildings, if you will. And of course, they hit cities and towns. Of course, the Israelis want to say, hey, they're terrorists. They're terror. It's terror. They hit civilians. Terror. Well, guess what? The generals and the nuclear scientists that were murdered, that were killed in that first day of 24 hours of Israeli strikes, they were in homes. It was early in the morning. They were at home with their families and neighbors, other apartments, and other homes that were close to them. It didn't just hit the general in his bedroom. And even then, his wife was there with him. They didn't care. They hit those people who lived in apartment buildings, most of them, luxury apartment buildings. And that's what Israel struck. They didn't get him when he was on the ground, when he was on his way to work. They wanted to do this to terrorize the people. So anyway, it was Israel that wanted the ceasefire because they're getting pounded. And the people are leaving in the droves. Those that can afford it, they're gone. There's videos of them too getting on ferries or something, just by the hundreds at a time, just getting out of there. Okay, but anyway, so now that Iran bloodied Israel's nose, of course, as Israeli forces in America um, will demand, and he'll get new reports from Israel. He'll depend on instead of our own intelligence report that say, yeah, we need to go in. We need to go in and we need to try to do a regime change. I think Iran has shown everyone that they're capable. They're capable to pass out bloody noses. Okay, they're capable, and they were cautious in their efforts. They didn't want to cause mass casualties. They didn't. Okay, but if we try to do a regime change in Iran, I think they're just going to let it all fly because they know the regime change will mean. Okay, if it's a return of the Shah's son, there'll be a brutal, absolutely brutal crackdown on the citizens, on the population. Anytime there's a regime change, there is a brutal repression. Okay, brutality is rampant. They snatch people up for questioning. It doesn't matter when the Ayatollah people came in. For certain segments of society, it wasn't nice. When the Shah came in, after Mossadegh was overthrown, was assassinated with CIA and MI6 help, and the Shah came in, it wasn't nice. Now, when you got the CIA is running your security and your surveillance state, okay, whatever Iran's doing over there, we need to leave them alone. They're not bothering us. They're not bothering us. And again, like I say, there's folks right in America are basically conducting a regime change operation with these protests and loot and burning and putting up signs saying put Trump in jail or saying impeach Trump. That's regime change, folks. We got it going on right here in America. And our response is National Guard and Marines, and the people in America, certain segments are applauding. Oh, the Marines are there. The Marines are there. But if they try a regime change in Iran and they send in military forces, all right, we'll be calling them a brutal dictator. Okay. Anyway, we don't need a regime change anywhere. We need to leave other people alone. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, we moved aircraft carriers, fighter jets. What did that cost the taxpayers? What happened to this government efficiency? Huh? It cost guaranteed that just operation that in the Red Sea against the Yemenis, and this thing and moving bombers to Diego Garcia, moving military assets, crazy military assets, a whole bunch of stuff in the Mediterranean, Red Sea, Indian Ocean. All this stuff costs hundreds of millions of dollars, okay, in the defense of another country as usual, okay. If someone needs a regime change, it's the people that are running occupied Palestine, not the Iranians. Leave the Iranians alone. We saw what they can do. They say that it was limited. I kind of believe them. I don't see them having to lie about that. The Israelis know for certain of Iran's military and missile might. They know it. They know it firsthand because they're still trying to wipe the blood off their mouth. Anyway, I'm gonna let it go with that. Just running my mouth. Woke up with thoughts in my head, and I said I'll share it. Anyway, like and subscribe. It would help an old man out. I appreciate you. I want you all to have a good Sunday, and bless everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.